Well, this is a Facebook Live about hissy, scratchy, cranky kitties. And I have our family cats, Tony and Gaston here. He's the white guy. And Tony keeps reaching for me with his paw because we feed these cats often treats on this table. And he's pretty charged up. And a lot of what I want to talk about is setting your cats up for success so that you don't have, hissy, scratchy, cranky cats. Anyway, in case I haven't met anybody here, I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel. I'm a veterinarian with many years treating illnesses and injuries. But now a few years ago, finished my residency in veterinary behavior medicine, and I'm a specialist. And everything we do is research-based, and it's all about improving behavior, not only of the pet, but the well-being of everybody in the household. And these cats, they've got sharp teeth and claws, and there's an important reason for it. The truth is that our cats are actually wild animals, to a large extent, that we keep as pets. And in the wild, they survive not by group hunting like dogs do, but by catching and killing prey and eating it on the run. And they need to make their kill quickly. And so they have to be able to be lethal, frankly. And so when those weapons get turned on the person, that's not a positive thing. So if your cat has a history of doing this stuff, it's easy to get angry because, you love your cat and you assume that he or she loves you. And when you get nailed, that can cause a spike in emotion. But instead of getting angry, let's get cat smart instead. So what I'd like to do is talk to you about what is a cat really. And a cat is it's a creature that is been described in a generality as socially asocial. In other words, they do certainly have social interactions, and those things are important for them, but they're different than human social interactions, and they're different than a dog's social interactions. They interact, but they're friends with other cats in their colony, and they can be friends with us, but they don't actually have a requirement for it. And so they need to be able to enjoy those interactions on their terms. And that includes with us. If you expect your cat to, just want to be with you all of the time, there are a few kitties like that, but most of them, they show up when there's something in it for them. And so what I'm going to suggest that we do is that we invite our cats to interact with us. And if they're not ready to, they're not ready to. Instead of going out and grabbing your cat, what I would really encourage you to do is to wait for the cat to come to you. And so instead of requiring anything of your cats, give them an opportunity to, accept your invitation. Okay? So let's make it easy if you have a cranky cat. Let's set them up to success by being observant of their posture. And here we got Gaston here, who's, I go to touch him and, he shies away a little bit, but then I can rub his neck, and he's pretty good with that. So what do cats do? What is it that they like and don't like? Well, do observational research of cats in a free-living colony. They mutually groom each other, but it's almost all concentrated on the other cat's head and neck and shoulders. So that's what we should be doing with our cats as well. And if they get petted like front to back, like you can do with a dog, from starting with their head and all the way back to their rump, many of them will get pretty fussy after a few pets. And that's not their fault, because who they are is grooming about the head and neck and shoulders. And by the way, if anybody has any questions as I go, by all means, go ahead and type them in, and I will either answer them as we go or I'll do it at the end. But I welcome anybody's inquiries. So we've got cats who might be sitting in your lap, and you might be petting it gently and doing your best to confine that to the head and neck and shoulders. and that cat starts to get a little stiff, or, maybe even starts to bring up a paw. And, the natural human impulse is to reprimand, say, no, don't be doing that. Don't go there. Stand up, quit petting, stand up and let the cat drop off your lap. So that's the end of the interaction. They can earn an interaction by being gentle and sweet, and they lose it when they're, not, okay? So what we're going to do is let me tell you a little story here, actually, at this point. This is all about a cat named Omar. He was a cat who did great with the lady he lived with, but except when he was being brushed by her. And this cat would be okay for several brushes, and she took video of this. She actually used a home surveillance camera, and she shot video of this cat while she was brushing him, and apparently to her, he would suddenly jump up and wrap all of his feet and paws all over her arm and bite in a predatory kind of way. Well, we had two problems going here. One of those was that he had a unmet need for natural feline predation, and it turned out on physical exam, he had very itchy, unhealthy skin. He had a problem called feline hyperesthesia syndrome. And that was an important thing to understand. A physical diagnosis is so commonly a part of our behavior disorders. Further questioning and some video evidence, I asked her, does Omar's skin ever just ripple? Like if you're familiar with horses, how their skin might ripple to scare off the flies. Well, yeah, actually he did. And in fact, sometimes he'd be just sitting someplace in the house, and all of a sudden, he'd turn his head real quick and bite on his skin, or he might be sitting very quietly and suddenly just jump up and race out of the room like he was shot from a cannon. Well, that cat had itchy skin that would suddenly cause him a big problem. And cats like that with continual itchy skin, which is worse sometimes than others, those cats are really, really actually set up to fail. Because when Omar was getting brushed by his owner, he suddenly reached this threshold and he lost control of himself. Of course, that made his person angry. Understandable. Once we made our physical diagnosis, I sent Omar to a veterinary dermatologist who came to learn that he actually had a severe food allergy, and by changing his diet to Purina Pro Plan HA, which in this particular kitty was the way to go. It's a prescription diet, and it is intended to reduce the allergic itching by not allowing the proteins in the diet to break open mast cells that release histamine. And so what we needed to do was to get this cat physically healthy and comfortable, and then set him up for success with this person. So her instructions were to go ahead and brush Omar very slowly and watch his body signaling. And if he got stiff, she simply put down the brush and get up and walk away. Now, there are other indicators that cats can be getting uncomfortable. You've got the tail switching, or, the first time I heard that term, I was thinking of cats actually switching tails, like Tony here wearing Gaston's white tail and Gaston wearing Tony's gray tail, but tail switching doesn't work like that. So probably a more descriptive term is tail swishing. Cats do that, they're not very happy. And so our job is, we don't try to correct that. We don't try to require that cat to feel the way we want them to feel. Again, we set them up for success, and we simply stop the interaction. So going forward, this feline hyperesthesia syndrome, the rippling skin, the sudden biting of the skin, the jumping up and running off, veterinary medicine used to consider that to be a behavior problem exclusively. Well, good research has shown that 85% of those cats have actual skin disease. Some of them have food allergies like Omar. Some have environmental allergies like, pollens, house dust, molds, the same kinds of things that people can be allergic to. But many of them also have undiagnosed mange, often called occult mange, because sometimes a very careful veterinarian can do combings of the skin, can do scrapings, can look at hairs under the microscope and never find it. Well, those cats with occult mange sometimes need to be treated anyway because today's mange treatments in cats are entirely safe and entirely bulletproof effective. So simply doing a trial treatment can be very helpful. So how do we go forward from here? Well, what I'm going to suggest is, here are the mistakes people make. People will sometimes squirt cats. Please don't do that. You'll damage your relationship. Those kitties, they learn to either dislike their owner or just plow through the water. Again, these are innate behaviors. This is part of who they are, and they need to be allowed to succeed on, frankly, on their terms. We don't make them who we want them to be. And don't swat and yell. When you use our hands, human hands, for punishment, cats can learn to fear us. They can also become defensive aggressive and start biting and swatting worse. And we don't want a good relationship to go downhill. And so what I'm going to encourage you to do instead is to recognize that our cats are obligate predators. And most of their predation in the wild takes place in the evenings and early nighttime. And that's the time of day to entice your cat. And Tony's not buying what I'm selling right now. but another time he might. But these are the things that you can do with your cat that are not part of human anatomy. There we go. Okay? And he looks at this little fish on this string as prey. It just triggers that innate reflex in him. And we're never going to use our hands either for correction or punishment or for play. You know, I've seen toys that people use. They can even put on a regular glove and then play with their cat like this, you know, and the cat will go after it and you don't get your skin hurt. But this resembles human anatomy because, well, actually is human anatomy. And parts of our body should never be associated with this kind of thing with cats. Some cats, by the way, will attack people when they're walking. And boy, that's a problem, especially if you're wearing short pants or women wearing a skirt, for example. And cats will hide around the corner and ambush people. And that's a real problem. And those cats are exercising their predatory innate behavioral needs. And they absolutely must have those needs met, which is why so many cats, frankly, do better with significant amounts of time outside. But if that's not safe for your cat, then we need to do it indoors. And I mean, every night they play for 3 to 4 minutes, then they're done. Something else that a lot of cats will enjoy is a laser pointer, that kind of thing. You know, I'm not going to shine it at the camera, but they'll chase those things on the wall. There's nothing wrong with that. Some of these other toys that, you know, cats enjoy, I mean, they'll push this kind of stuff around and they'll jump on it. And you want to rotate the toys. You don't want to just leave them out all the time. You want to pick them up and put them out and put different toys out the next day. But for example, you can tie a string to a toy like this, 3 feet of string, tie it to your ankle, and as you walk around the house, a toy like this or a couple of feathers glued to the end of a string flip and flop in an erratic way like wounded prey. And just go crazy for that stuff, as they need to. So if you provide your cat lots of opportunities to be a real honest-to-goodness cat, then you don't end up playing surrogate mouse. And by the way, I know a lot of people, if they're laying in bed and they move their feet around under the sheet and the cat pounces on their feet, that's a great way for cats to enjoy predatory behavior, except that they have a sense of smell that's been measured at about 1,000 times as acute as ours, and possibly more acute than a dog's. And they know it's your feet under there. And again, we don't want predation in the cat's mind to ever be associated with anything to do with the human. So as much fun as that appears to be, you're sort of setting your cat up to fail by using your body in anything remotely suggestive of aggressive behavior, including normally aggressive behavior. So if anybody enjoys this Facebook Live, I invite you to make comments. If you like it, hit the little heart button or the wow if you think that it's that good. And if you have suggestions for other Facebook Lives on cats or dogs, I invite you to send those to me on my Facebook page. I'm delighted to continue doing these things approximately once a week, and I'm going to try to provide all the information and education I can, not only taking good care of our cats, but managing behavior problems and setting them up to do the right thing. So thank you for tuning in. I have Tony here, Gaston sitting across the room watching me. So thank you for being part of this. I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel.